the most unexpected threat to your child? When my son Ethan was born, me and my husband Josh trusted our family doctor, Dr. Lister, like he was family. This guy had treated Josh since he was a kid. We figured if he was good enough for Josh growing up, he was perfect for Ethan. At 9 months old, Ethan spiked this crazy high fever out of nowhere, like his whole body was burning up. I freaked out and rushed him to Dr. Lister's clinic that same day. The waiting room was packed, but they squeezed us in because Ethan looked awful. Dr. Lister gave him this super quick checkup, felt his forehead, looked in his ears for maybe 10 seconds, listened to his chest, then he just shrugged and said it was probably some virus going around. He handed me a prescription for children's Tylenol and told me to keep Ethan hydrated and let him rest, but the fever kept coming back. Every time the Tylenol wore off, Ethan's temperature would shoot right back up. His skin turned this weird pale color, almost grayish. He wasn't crying as much, which should have been good, but something felt wrong. Babies are supposed to cry when they feel bad, right? I brought him back 2 days later. Dr. Lister seemed annoyed that I was there again. He barely looked at Ethan this time, just asked if I was giving him the Tylenol on schedule. When I said yes, he rolled his eyes and told me I was being an over-nervous new mom, and that first-time parents always panic over nothing. 3 days after that, I was back again. Ethan looked even worse. He was barely eating, sleeping way too much, and when he was awake, he just stared at nothing. Dr. Lister didn't even examine him this time. He just stood in the doorway and said, "Same virus, same treatment, stop bringing him in for every little thing." That night, around 2 a.m., Ethan started seizing. His whole tiny body was shaking and his eyes rolled back. I screamed for Josh, and we grabbed Ethan and drove to the hospital doing like 80 mumpy IR. The ER doctor took one look at Ethan and immediately called for tests. Within 30 minutes, they had him hooked up to machines and were running blood work. The pediatric ER doctor, Dr. Kim, pulled me aside and asked why Ethan hadn't been put on antibiotics earlier. "What do you mean?" I asked. "He has bacterial meningitis," she said. "This has clearly been developing for several days. His symptoms should have been a red flag for any pediatrician." Ethan spent 2 weeks in the ICU. They had to do spinal taps and pump him full of antibiotics. The doctors told us flat out that if we had waited even one more day to bring him in, he might not have survived. He almost lost his hearing permanently. When the hospital requested Ethan's medical records from Dr. Lister, I was shocked at what came back. There were notes from my first visit, but nothing about the follow-up appointments. Like those visits never happened. The hospital asked me to verify the dates I brought Ethan in, because according to Dr. Lister's records, I had only brought him once. That's when the hospital social worker told me something that made my blood run cold. Dr. Lister was already under investigation by the state medical board. Multiple parents had filed complaints saying he dismissed serious symptoms in their kids. 2 babies had died in the past year. Both were his patients. Both had infections that should have been caught early. I completely broke down in that hospital hallway. While my son was fighting for his life, I found out his doctor had been basically ignoring sick kids for months. The social worker told me that other parents reported the same thing. Follow-up visits that weren't documented, symptoms that were brushed off, and Dr. Lister telling parents they were overreacting. Dr. Lister lost his medical license 6 months later. The investigation found that he had been falsifying records and failing to properly examine patients. Turns out he was having personal problems, gambling debts and a divorce, and was basically phoning it in at work while kids suffered. Ethan recovered, but he has some hearing damage in his left ear. The doctor said it's mild and shouldn't affect his development.